Hey Racer fans, thanks for joining us, our weekly Tough Guy series. Today's subject, I'm not going to be able to do justice in 4 or 5 minutes, but you all know him, Uncle Bobby, Bobby Unser, 3-time Indy winner. Robin, I look like Obama, look at my ears. Well, this could have been a presidential candidate because he's certainly opinionated and he's certainly been around a long time. And if you're a race fan, an older race fan like me, you got to watch this guy race. If you're a younger IndyCar fan, you probably got to listen to him on ABC with Paul Page and Sam Posey. But let me just say that this is a Tough Guy series. Unser went under the guardrail at Phoenix, flipped down the backstretch at Phoenix, lived and survived through the most lethal times in IndyCar racing to win the Indy 500 3 times. He and Rick Mears are the only two drivers that ever won Indy in 3 different decades. But the thing that's cool about Uncle Bobby is he started in the Novi in 1963, finished in Victory Lane in 1981 in a ground effects car, and all the things he did in between, with his chassis savvy and his street smarts. Unser was a ruthless, aggressive competitor. He wanted to lead every lap, and he led almost 5,000 laps in his IndyCar career. I mean, when you think about how he started and jumped in the Novi, nobody wanted to be in. Parnelli told Andy Granatelli let him drive it, and he was running qualifying speeds 10 laps into his practice session. So this guy had an immense amount of talent, and he had a lot of confidence in himself, although not at first. The only time I've ever heard him be really not Bobby Unser is when he said he didn't think he was good enough to be at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but Parnelli did, so Parnelli convinced him to show up. Well, as we know, through the next 4 decades, he had an effect on a lot of things. He beat the Turbines in 1968 for his first win. He got Dan Gurney his only victory in 1975. And as I said, with Roger Penske and the ground effects car he helped develop, he won in 1981. But the thing that makes Unser such a treasure is his opinions. And the fact that he has this unflinching belief in whatever he'll say, he answers every question without thinking. I mean, he just gives you his answer. He's not filtered, and that's why we love him, because in today's sports realm, everybody has to watch what they say. And of course, with AJ and with Uncle Bobby and Mario and people like that, they don't have to, because they made it. They're legends. They can say what they want to say, and that's how they grew up. So let me give you a quick example. Like I did a Q&A with Unser once on a stage a couple of years ago at PRI. And I said, Bobby, I'm going to say a name, you give me a response. AJ Foyt. He's a bully, son. Just a big bully. Great driver, but just a bully. People are going, oh. Mario Andretti. I love the WAP. We were best friends in the 60s and 70s. Then we had our falling out in 81, but he's a great race driver. Gordon Johncock. Mechanical moron. If he'd have paid any attention to a chassis, he's just like my brother. He didn't pay attention. John Cook could have won Indy 4 or 5 times, but he just wasn't very smart. But he was a hard driver and a very tough guy to beat. Don Branson. Loved Pappy Branson. He taught me so much about qualifying. Rick Mears. Just a kid. I kind of showed him the way around. It's a good thing I was around to set up the cars for him, because he was out playing with his toys, but he became a really good race driver. Where do you make this? You can't make this stuff up. After his career, he goes to ABC, and he's a treasure, because he says whatever's on his mind. It's him and Paul Page and Sam Posey, and he's correcting them, and they're arguing about stuff, and it was the greatest television ever. And of course, ABC wasn't smart enough to know that, because they told Bobby, now, don't be correcting Sam and Paul in the air and hold your opinions down. No, that's not what we want. We want Uncle Bobby to be Uncle Bobby. So now the only time you can really hear his opinions, next week if you're lucky enough to go to the Chili Bowl, find Unser. He'll be in his little 3-wheel cart holding court outside the pit area, and there'll be 20 or 30 people listening, and it's a good idea to listen because his stories are so entertaining. I'm going to give you 2 Bobby Unser stories. After all the stats I told you, he won Pikes Peak 13 times, and one of the great IndyCar drivers of all time, but also this encapsulates Bobby Unser. Him and Johncock bang wheels at Milwaukee. He hits the wall. Next week we're at Atlanta. Johncock sitting on the pit wall. He's got his helmet. He's got a Bell Star on with a little tiny opening in it. Uncle Bobby stops. There's about 15 guys standing there, press guys. He goes, Johncock, if anybody needs to have a bigger opening in his helmet, it's you. You're blind, son. You ran me right in the wall at Milwaukee. You got your head up your ass. Johncock gives him the finger. I've been running the same groove for the last 25 years, Unser. You know what you're talking about. That was just, and then they just walked on. That was just part of life. But the quintessential Bobby Unser story, in the early 60s he was between wives. He's been married 4 or 5 times. Thank God Lisa Unser, his current wife, She's a saint. She should get the Pulitzer Prize, Nobel Peace Prize, every prize you can give. Lisa Unser deserves it. But Uncle Bobby's between wives. He's living at the Speedway. He's lived at the Howard Johnson's out on Cartersville Road in the early '60s at Indy. 3 weeks of practice. It rains one day, or whenever it rained, Uncle Bobby's one of his routines was he'd go to Kroger's, get a grocery cart, put a turkey in it, start trolling, till he saw a woman. Was she single? Was she married? We don't know. We don't care. But she was a woman, and she was probably good looking. So Uncle Bobby would introduce himself. Hi, I'm Bobby Unser, Indy 500 driver. How are you? I really like your city. But you know what I really love is I love turkey. But the problem is I live at Howard Johnson's. We don't have a stove or an oven. So what do you think about going to your house and letting me cook my turkey in your oven? I'm not sure if there's a joke there or not. Let me cook my turkey in your oven. But I didn't make it up, and it actually worked. Women took Unser home with them. They probably, I don't know, it'd be a great book, wouldn't it? Because you can't make stuff like that up. So, I always like to be around Uncle Bob, and I always order a turkey sandwich for lunch when I'm with him, and he chuckles. He thinks that's funny. Anyway, he's 82. He'll be 83 in February. As my buddy Tim Coffeen says, he's an American treasure. I hope you got to watch him race. If you didn't, I hope you got to watch him on TV. If not, stop him sometime and start a conversation. He's never met a stranger. He's Uncle Bobby, and he's ours, and I'm glad I got to know him. Robin Miller for Racer TV, Racer.com. Thanks for watching. Talk to you next week.